let me kick things off by giving a very brief introduction to what are clawback claims. The bankruptcy lawyers in the room will be intimately familiar with this, but for those who are not bankruptcy lawyers, a quick overview. Avoidance claims is a term that we use interchangeably with clawback claims. There are two principal sorts: preference claims and fraudulent conveyance, also known as fraudulent transfer claims. Very briefly on preference, and I think our focus is going to be much more on fraudulent transfer claims than preference claims here, particularly because there were no preference claims in Bayou, so the Bayou example is not instructive there. In Bayou, much more than 90 days passed between the discovery of the fraud and the bankruptcy filing, so there just weren't any redemptions during the 90-day preference period. Very briefly, though, the preference claims are claims that a debtor in bankruptcy or a trustee brings against creditors whose debts were repaid during the last 90 days before the bankruptcy filing. For insiders, you can reach back a year, but in this case, we're really looking, by and large, at the 90-day clawback period. The general doctrine is that if you, as a creditor, get your debt repaid and therefore are preferred, treated better than other creditors, generally speaking, you will be required to return that money to the estate and stand in line with everybody else as a creditor. There are certain exceptions. In the present case, the one exception that's most likely to be litigated is ordinary course of business. If your debt is incurred in the ordinary course and it's repaid in the ordinary course of business, that is generally a defense. Now, fraudulent transfer claims are fundamentally different from preference claims in that fraudulent transfer doesn't involve repayment of a debt. Fraudulent transfer is essentially when somebody gives away their assets, either for the purpose of frustrating their creditors or even if they don't have a guilty purpose, if they're insolvent and they give away their assets for free or for less than fair value. The latter is called a constructive fraudulent conveyance. The former is called an intentional fraudulent conveyance. The classic example of the former is somebody who's being sued, and in order to protect his assets from what he views as a possible eventual judgment, gives his assets to his wife. Regardless of her guilt or innocence, that transfer will be undone as a fraudulent conveyance.